Therapy wasn't for me. I didn't need it. I used to think to myself, I'm not perfect. Sure, things can always be better, but there's nothing so serious in my life that I need therapy. And what can somebody that I don't know and that doesn't know me possibly tell me in a therapy session that I haven't already heard before that would help my life in any real way? And most importantly, why would I pay somebody $200 an hour to talk about my life when my friends can already do that for free? Those are all fair thoughts to have at first. I don't really blame myself because how can you know the value of therapy prior to experiencing it? However, at one point I decided I wanted to challenge my assumptions I had about therapy. Because clearly there's people out here that feel that therapy changed their life, and they probably didn't realize the value that they would have received from therapy until after they tried it. So what that means is that they took a chance on it without knowing what the outcome would be. So I told myself that I would commit to 6 months of therapy. Worst case scenario, I spend a bit of money, and at least I walk away from it knowing that I gave myself an honest shot, even if it didn't do anything for me. But best case scenario is that I give it my honest effort, and then it genuinely changes and improves the course of my life in ways that I never would have been able to predict it would prior to doing it. So I booked my first session. And fast forward, I've now been to 8 sessions over the past 4 months, and now I have some experience and an opinion to reflect on. So as someone who still has admittedly a lot of work to do on myself, I want to share with you what makes therapy so special. If someone wanted to go to Nepal and climb a mountain, or they wanted to go to Everest, they wouldn't do it alone, right? If they want to have the best chance of surviving, they would often hire the help of a Sherpa. And what's a Sherpa if you don't know? Think of a person that grew up around a mountain. They kind of have a good idea of where you can walk, where you can't, where there's cliffs, where there's wide rivers that you can't cross, where the ground is strong, where the ground is kind of shaky and unstable. This explorer would hire the help of a Sherpa to help them navigate to get up the mountain, or at least to a point where the Sherpa can let him go off on his own and help them as far as he can. I view therapists the same way as a Sherpa. A therapist, instead of helping you navigate the rough terrain of land, they're helping you navigate the terrain of your mind. The path of self-discovery, the path of self-healing, the path of self-understanding. That is the path of an explorer. As humans, I think it's important for us to always be exploring ourselves, our mind, and a therapist is one of the most capable, if not the most capable person that can help you do that. In a way, I view my interactions with my therapist as if I'm talking to an imaginary friend. She doesn't really exist to me. What I mean is, my friends will never meet my therapist. My friends will never meet her, my partner will never meet her. Those two worlds of mine are completely separated. It's like my therapist is uniquely isolated from every area of my life. She might as well be an invisible spirit that whispers in my ear, because the only way she exists anywhere else in my world is directly through the impact that she has on me. And there's a deep invitation into vulnerability that comes from knowing that your therapist and anything you express to them won't be shared anywhere else. They're not gonna see a post of it on social media. No one else is gonna know about it. It's gonna be private. They don't really have a choice. Their livelihood depends on them maintaining a level of confidentiality between anything you choose to say and anything that they hear. Their job is basically, in part, to keep secrets for a living. The only time that they can disclose anything you share is if that they get an idea that you might bring harm to yourself or somebody else. And I think that's a pretty reasonable exception to the rule, if you ask me. But otherwise, your time with a therapy gives you true emotional safety and freedom of speech to say whatever you want without worrying about being judged, and knowing that the person you're sharing it with, whatever you choose to vent about, big or small, that person that's listening is equipped to assist you through whatever that thing is. What I've found through my experience with therapy is that each session is a perfect kind of battleground that I can have with myself, because I'm able to work on articulating complicated thoughts that I've always had that I've had a hard time putting into words. And in that environment, I don't have to worry about making sure that the words I'm saying very closely align with what I'm trying to say. Like it's an opportunity to make mistakes. It's an opportunity to kind of flush out how you feel about a certain thing, to work through your thoughts and kind of go through the maze of your mind, to come out the other side with a better understanding, a clear understanding. And sometimes it's something small. It could be as small as trying to articulate my thoughts about, the state of the world, my thoughts about a philosophy that I have, my thoughts about how I feel about a relationship that I have. It's an opportunity to have fault in the way you're speaking and be okay with that, because there's no judgment, and this individual is going to be able to help you through that. And for people that really value self-discovery and being precise in their speech and that are reflective and seek to evaluate themselves, this is the perfect arena. Speaking to a therapist is like talking to an imaginary friend, because you can't say the wrong thing to a therapist. You can go in there without worrying about assumptions being made about you or judgment calls being placed upon you. You can say whatever the hell you want because they don't exist. What I've found that makes therapy so unique is that it's a relationship that you can't have with anyone else, because it's fundamentally one-sided. Like if I walk into my therapy session and my therapist asks, Adrian, how are you doing this week? I can focus 100% of my emotional mental energy on just answering that question without having to have one little impulse in me after 30 minutes to say, oh, anyways, I've been talking too long. Therapist, how have you been this week? What's your week been like? You don't have to play the back and forth social etiquette reciprocity game that you do everywhere else in your life. You don't even have to pretend to care about the therapist. I mean, I have great conversations with her, I do care, but you don't have to care. And there's a certain freedom with that. You have permission to be 100% selfish during the course of that 1 hour conversation you have. And you better be, because you're paying for it. This is your time, and that's one of the big pieces of value that you get from therapy. The therapist has one job, and that is to serve you, serve your best interest, to talk about whatever you want to express. You don't have to warm the therapist up. I can go on my next therapy session and discuss my concerns over the economy and the direction that we seem to be headed, or the challenges I'm experiencing in my relationship, whether big or small. And then somehow she will gently guide the conversation over the course of an hour to where I'll leave that session with far greater clarity and peace around the source of my feelings, and feel better equipped to move forward in whatever concern I was expressing. I view therapy like a massage for your mind, because a massage doesn't actually change your body. It's just adjustments being made to you that allow you to feel better going forward. In therapy, it's the same way. The therapist isn't inherently changing you, but they're making adjustments to your perspective that allows you to function in a more balanced and healthier way moving forward. I used to think, like, why therapy when you have friends? You can talk to your friends, they can give you feedback. It's therapeutic just to vent to your friend and just have them be, an open ear for you. And friends are great. I get tremendous amount of value, even therapeutic value, from relationships that I have. But there's something special about talking to someone who's highly educated and specialized in the thing that you are trying to work through in your life. Friends can't compare to that professional experience that you get going to a therapist. I use therapy kind of the same way that I use a mirror, right? Because we go to a mirror with a pretty good understanding in our head of how we look and how we're going to reflect back at ourselves. But we still go to the mirror. Why? Because we want clarity on how we look. We want the full picture. In the mirror, I can check that I'm good from different angles, right? I can make sure my collar is not flipped up. I can make sure I don't have a stain on my shirt, crumbs in my beard. I don't have my shirt inside out. Because sometimes we just miss stuff. Everyone knows the experience of putting a shirt on inside out or your pants backwards. Things happen. The mirror helps you make sure that you're happy with what you see in yourself. Therapy is the exact same thing. Therapy is an opportunity to check yourself, to make sure that your reality matches with what you think your reality is. To find those little things about yourself that you might have missed along the way, that are part of who you are right now, but you definitely don't want to keep. Like the crumbs I find on my beard after eating, right? It's part of who you are. You look in the mirror, you find it, you don't want it, you take it out. Therapy helps you do that with those little things in your life. Sometimes you may find something through therapy, even unintentionally, without realizing it, when you go into the session, that you want to address about yourself. I'm talking like looking in the mirror and realizing you're not wearing pants kind of big. Things that can radically change your life if you address it, or that you realize your life has been altered because you haven't addressed it, or you haven't found it because it's been in your blind spot. Therapy is a tool for reflection, and it helps you discover these things because it's allowing you to check your blind spots and get that angle that you might have never gotten on your own. Therapy, like a mirror, is just a tool to help you experience the best version of yourself in ways you may have never expected. Therapy is uncomfortable. I don't think anyone fears therapy, but I do think that people fear what therapy will expose us to within ourselves, whether we recognize that as a reason or not. Because being vulnerable usually isn't fun. And it's definitely not easy. Vulnerability challenges you to walk down this path that leads you into the wilderness of your mind and causes you to confront and come face to face with parts of yourself that you may never have knew was there, but they have to be overcome in order to blossom into the person that you're capable of being, to realize your true potential. Yeah, you might find yourself encountering parts of yourself that scares you, that embarrasses you, that makes you feel shame, that makes you feel immature. It can take this solid structure that you have of yourself, this image you have of yourself, cause you to deconstruct it a bit, to have this image of yourself crumble a little bit, but then give you the opportunity to build it back up in the way that you ideally want it to be. And the end result of that is that you eventually find peace and fulfillment in who you are and who you're becoming, because all those dark, suppressed, shaded parts of you that you've maybe even unconsciously been avoiding and neglecting gets a light shine on them in those dark corners, and you come out of it being completely satisfied with who you are because you know every rock has been overturned. I do think that some people are turned off by the stigma surrounding therapy. I was like that at one point too, because they think to themselves like, therapy is only for people that got some serious problems. Therapy is for people that have something wrong with them. And so they think, if I don't go to therapy, then that means there's nothing wrong with me. And as a result, it keeps them suppressed. They continue being angry, they continue being, ego-driven, they continue trying to prove something to the world around them, instead of just being satisfied and fulfilled with themselves. It doesn't mean that they're not willing to have ambitions or want more for themselves, but people that have suppressed parts of them, it's a disadvantage, it's a weakness. And so I think people that find themselves refusing to admit that they could be better keep themselves in a position to where they never will be better. They hold themselves back because of the insecurity they have with admitting that maybe things in their life are not going the way that it could if they were upfront with themselves, with the decisions that they made or the circumstances that were handed to them that led them down this path to be in the position that they are. The reality is that therapy is for people who recognize that everyone was born in this world with a very unique set of life circumstances. We all weren't given the perfect puzzle pieces to fit together. And so there are always gonna be something that's not right, that could fit better in our lives. By acknowledging that, it allows us the opportunity to focus intently on making these small adjustments so that things come together in our lives. I think those who seek therapy have reached a level of humility to acknowledge that things in your life could be better, and you deserve for it to be better, and you're capable and ready to start working towards being better. And so you start to work on yourself. It's challenging, sure, but there's nothing more worth the effort than your own well-being. For a long time, I've known about therapy, but I felt like it wasn't for me. But I realized that my highest priority in my life is to have the highest quality of life in here, mentally, internally. And if therapy could provide an opportunity for me to get that, then I owe it to myself to give it a try. So do you. If you've ever considered therapy, I hope that this video might be the nudge that you've always needed to give it a try. There's a good chance that the person you've always wanted to become and the clarity and the peace that you've always wanted to feel within yourself can be found on the other side of therapy. And it really does take a strong person to realize that and act on it.